I think realistically, Apple is very haughty. It's kind of like the Harvard of tech companies. And if someone else does it, they're going to do the opposite.
What? I don't know.
That raises an interesting point,
Such
Dave.
an Apple hater, man.
Here we go. We are how many minutes in?
They don't consider themselves a peer to Facebook. So like what they're going to look, or Meta.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't know about that.
And so they're like, well, what has the little peon done? Right.
No, Apple's going to invent something else called like iPrivacy or something. And then they're going to say they've invented iSafety.
All we're asking for is please like update screen time, like talk to parents.
Why, hello, and welcome to another week of More or Less. Here with
Sam's
the full
alive.
complement. Sam's alive.
Sam's alive. And look
Why
who's
are
here.
you shocked?
Also alive, just joining for the cold open. I wanted to give Sam, gratitude and thanks for facilitating, one of the best adventures I've ever had. We fucking crushed it.
Yeah, we did.
And it was also the hardest thing I've ever done, but a true bucket list. So not that Sam needs more public credit, but I'm going to give it to him here. And thank you.
We were just talking about that with our therapist.
So now that we had our surprise guest, Nate, your climbing buddy, tell us what actually was it like and about this adventure, which I will give away a little bit in that, I have never before heard you say that something was incredibly, incredibly physically difficult. So this must have been next level.
I can't believe you're giving away my secret. I was going to tell everyone it was easy.
I have the text messages to prove otherwise.
I saw a video on on Nate's phone where Sam said at the very top, that was re-humbling.
Whoa, send me that video.
It was re-humbling.
Re-humbling.
Nate and I, with another friend, Vlad, left at 5 p.m. from San Francisco, flew to Jackson Hole, woke up at 4 in the morning. We're climbing by 5, summited Grand Teton around 1 p.m., and then climbed down and ended our day at about 10 p.m. back in the parking lot. So it was a 16-hour hike, 7,000 vertical feet, 20 pitches-ish of 5 plus rock climbing, which, by the way, I am not a rock climber. It was definitely re-humbling, I think was the word, to go from 0 feet to almost 14,000 and do that. The thing that's really re-humbling, though, is, as Nate said, we have to admit it actually was pretty hard. It was a great day. We were recovered by the next day. It was pretty hard. We learned from our guides that while there's some issue of whether it counts or not, we can get into the mountaineering culture. The record for the Grand Teton car to car was just broken. And the record, we did it in 16 hours and it was not easy. This guy did it in 2 hours and 50 minutes car to car, base to top to base, which honestly, I cannot mentally process. Like I can mentally process. I can run, let's call it about a 3-hour marathon. I'm hoping to get under 3 this fall. I can understand intellectually the idea of running a sub 2 marathon. I can't do it, but I can understand the idea of it. I don't understand the idea of doing the Grand Teton car to car in 2 hours. It like literally doesn't compute for me.
That's insane.
It makes me realize that, I am not superhuman and just working out a lot doesn't get you there.
So I think I know how he did it in under 3 hours, which is he is using all of the latest and greatest robotic leg technology, which I actually have seen marketed on Instagram for people who want to hike longer routes. So next time you go to the Grand Teton...
Yeah, didn't Arc'teryx actually launch some pants?
Yes, it was Arc'teryx.
I think Arc'teryx actually has pants that has this robotic legs.
And they're running ads on Instagram, and I got targeted with one.
I can guarantee you that this guy basically probably did it naked. Pure human power.
Wait, what are these called? Robotic hiking pants? Uphill boost? I thought Arc'teryx was like legit. This is ridiculous.
The future is here, Jess.
Well, no, the Arc'teryx, listen, having spent 16 hours with mountain guides very recently, I got a full rundown of the state of all the apparel industry and apparently Arc'teryx has gone very urban chic. Arc'teryx is not the Arc'teryx we knew.
Yeah, you can
Oh.
thank private equity for that, Sam.
Is that true? Did they get bought out?
Yeah, they got bought out a long time ago. They've been doing the private equity, expand the SKUs, lower the quality thing for years.
Arc'teryx is doing the go broad thing, while Nike has recentered on excellence and greatness.
Is this why you got me a Helly Hansen jacket? Did the outfitters think Helly Hansen was?
Well, that Helly Hansen jacket's cool.
Helly Hansen's cool, Jess. Helly Hansen's like
thank you.
Japan, and they got all kinds of cool stuff going on.
I bought Jess a very cool Helly Hansen jacket. I'm very excited about it.
It is really cool. Where is it, by the way? It's not where
I took it to Jackson.
Well,
it's in your ski locker.
Onward.
It's in my ski locker. Guys, I am like working on our kids' ski instructors for the almost ski season. But before it is almost ski season, it was another big week in tech news and tech conferences and tech events. And one of the big headlines this week was Instagram has rolled out an array of new teen controls, probably the most significant of which is default setting teen apps to private, and some interesting approaches to age verification, including, I think, some AI, although I didn't read all the details.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they like deny this to you like aggressively when you were reporting about this like a year ago?
Sam, why did you go there?
Give him some credit today, Sam.
Now all of our friends are going to hate me even more. No, yeah. I mean, yes. Instagram to this point has, when faced a lot of questions about teen controls, they had taken a lot of steps, but amid a lot of lawsuits and a lot of press pressure, their answer was a lot of reasons why these wouldn't, the kinds of things that I don't know if these are exactly the kinds of things they launched yesterday, but there was a lot of pushback a year or so ago on the notion that they weren't doing enough. And this was both in light of lawsuits and in light of a lot of press coverage from the information in the Times and the Journal. And so I candidly was quite surprised to see them come out and announce such a sweeping set of tools when the company had been very defensive about what they had been doing. To be clear, they had been doing things, but this seems like they took the step that they hadn't wanted to, which was to go default private for teens, as opposed to just a lot of tools, which they had been rolling out more on the control side. There are a lot of other things too, including like no notifications in the middle of the night and that kind of stuff, which I believe is mandated by a new New York bill. But it was a big step. So, I mean, Dave, you have thought deeply about this topic. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'll have to say, like I always say, the devil is in the defaults. And I give them real credit, props to Adam Mosseri, and I assume Mark Zuckerberg was involved in this decision, but changing the default is a huge deal. And I can't think of another technology company that is willingly, or perhaps under some pressure here, changed the default. It's something that actually really will, influence the metrics, perhaps damage the business for that segment. And so to change the default, I think, is a really big deal, and they deserve some credit. We could get into the nuance around what that default change is. I was looking at it this morning. Looks like it only really applies to the ages 13 to 16. So that's like a little bit of the, the subtext here is that this isn't a 13 to 18 kind of a thing. It looks like 16 plus year olds can actually just change their default again. I don't know if we want to get into splitting hairs around how much of a parent should the technology business be to kids, but I do think they deserve some credit for trying to protect children. I mean, as a parent last night, I think Britt and I were out to dinner and we both felt some sense of relief that there's some leadership here and that people are starting to take the mental health of our future generations into account. So I'm psyched to see a default change.
Can I tag on to that? Last week we were talking about how out of all of the Apple announcements at the Apple event, there was nothing new about screen time controls and privacy controls amongst Jonathan Haidt and all of the sort of anxious generation hubbub in culture right now with kids and phones. And I hope Apple is paying attention to this because at the end of the day, the defaults are actually on the device itself. And I hope that, they look at Meta leading by example here and do something to better equip parents to better manage their kids' screen times on the whole operating system of their phone, not just one app. I also agree with
No
Dave.
chance they will.
I don't know.
Yes, 7%.
I'm hopeful that maybe there's a sea change here and that people are actually, because there's changes happening at the default, maybe people will actually jump on this bandwagon.
Maybe, but the flip side is
this could be a society level change.
It'd be great. I think realistically, Apple is very haughty. It's kind of like the Harvard of tech companies. And if someone else does it, they're going to do the opposite.
What? I don't know.
That raises an interesting point,
Such
Dave.
an Apple hater, man.
Here we go. We are how many minutes in?
They don't consider themselves a peer to Facebook. So like what they're going to look, or Meta.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't know about that.
And so they're like, well, what has the little peon done? Right.
No, Apple's going to invent something else called like eye privacy or something. And then they're
No.
going to say they've invented eye safety.
All we're asking for is please like update screen time. Just do a release of screen time, like update it next month. Like talk to parents.
But we have to give them a PR version of this spin where they can like shit on everyone else.
Okay, it's called iTime. And it's a revolutionary aluminium never before seen.
Okay, Johnny Ive.
I always liked calling it dinner time, that parents should just have a single feature that they can push
Dave's
a button.
doing your branding for you, Tim Cook. You just need to
Push a button, it's dinner time, you know?
If someone can feed to them the way, if we could convince Apple to be like, oh, you know how you're really going to mess with everyone else because you're so much better is by putting parental, then they would do it. But they need a narrative where they're the savior and everyone else is dumb and they can screw with everyone else and then they'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think this pod can take up the cause of the screen time improvements, and I'd be happy.
We can have a protest. Could we have a more or less protest outside of Apple with moms
That'd be hilarious.
and dads and like with big
I mean,
rats?
to be fair, it needs to happen at Apple and Google because Android is a significant part of this equation too.
Sure, we can do it at Google too.
But if we do it at Apple, it'll get more press because people will cover Apple, right? And this will be a big thing. So we want to start there.
People cover Google.
To be clear, like the one, I mean, YouTube is a nefarious part of this equation that almost no one ever talks about. It's a huge part of kids' screen time.
It's a huge part. YouTube is the sleeper everything of the internet. I'm convinced. I'm convincing myself to start a YouTube publication. I just am always like, why don't I have more YouTube reporters? Like, I completely agree with that.
Especially with young
YouTube
kids.
actually had news this week too, though, you guys, which, I mean, maybe it's going the opposite direction by making people more addicted to YouTube. But did you see this?
Didn't
YouTube?
they literally call it hype?
Yeah. Which I actually kind of like this feature. I think it's really interesting.
What is it?
Okay, basically you get like 3 hype credits every, I don't know the time limit, like every month or so. And it's like a mega like. So it's not just liking a video, it's a mega like. And the videos that get the most mega likes are now ranked in the algorithm higher. So theoretically, even if a video only has 1,000 views and like 50 likes, if it has like, if all the likes are mega likes, it'll get like spotlighted.
Isn't there like the heart emoji, and the heart is more than a like?
This is some real 2024 innovation, you guys.
Yeah, this is late capitalism.
God, it's unbelievable.
You know who's going to be out there gaming that?
Let's
is good
addict
old
kids even more.
It's Mr. Beast. Did you see the strategy document that got dumped from him?
No.
It's wild.
I saw the Lunchables. He launched
It's
Lunchables.
wild. You should watch. We can put it in the show notes. I learned we can do that on podcasts. Where like
we
there's
always
this
say
great.
that, but we don't actually do it.
We
So
do.
if we
We've been
say
doing
it-
a little bit more.
Okay.
I don't know. I just say it and then I assume it happens. I don't know how it's done.
And AI does it.
No, there's a really interesting strategy document that leaked from his team about how they think about effectively attention and mining attention, the metrics that matter, et cetera. It's actually very much worth the read because you talk about super likes and late engagement capitalism. It's a pretty interesting gem from one of the best engagement hackers in the history of the world.
You know what also needs a hype feature, I think, is Netflix. Like there are shows I like, and then there are shows I want to hype, and I want my friends to know I've hyped them.
What do you want to
Don't
hype?
you agree? Well, right now, and while we're watching The Perfect Couple, I would
I
like
can't
hype that
wait.
one.
Yeah, started it. Didn't get far.
This is not a Sam show. This is a
Nope,
Jessica show.
not a Sam show. This
It's
is when I said I
okay.
was watching Nicole Kidman on Netflix.
Yeah, it's just another Nicole Kidman production.
Guys, television is not great right now, but we could maybe return to that because
I
it's
like
an
the Vince
important
Vaughn
topic.
thing. What's the Vince Vaughn thing?
No, but it got boring.
It did
The
get boring.
plot hasn't moved.
Yeah, but it's still Vince Vaughn. He's a pretty funny man.
The plot hasn't moved. Okay. So just on this teen thing, I was also interested, bringing up the parents' point. I was very interested how Instagram announced this. They had an event in New York, I believe. I think it was in New York. And it was a lot of parents in the audience. And it was like Jessica Alba talking about being a parent. Very parent-focused press strategy.
This was Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's genuine from a sense that like...
It seems genuine. To their credit, I think it does seem genuine. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that I hope that maybe the ask here is like that they try to get other people on board with them. Like one of the topics in the back channel last week that I thought was really interesting was Scott Belsky talking about this new AI standard that they've embedded into AI media. And it was the first time that I've seen somebody talk about like a collective technology industry standard in a long time. And there's like a bunch of collaboration going on amongst all of the big AI players to like put this standard into image generation. And I was just kind of proud of the industry that we're a part of. You know, I hadn't heard of a technology standards conversation like that in a long time. And I guess that's what I would implore Instagram to do here, is to try to get the other people on board to help, because I think that parents need it. Like we really need like everyone to come together to work on this, because it can't just be one company.
I'm with you, but Dave, just to like refocus on the Apple thing, standards make a lot of sense when you have a truly decentralized situation with like lots of different players. This is like having a thing where there's like a meta thing and all the other little things sit inside the thing. It'd be very easy for the parent thing to just do the thing, right? So it's like, I don't know, like the idea that you have a bunch of apps come together on some standard around parental controls just seems way more complicated and less successful than just having the actual platforms do it, right? Which is different than Adobe.
But Google and Apple would still need to do it, Sam, right?
But I'm saying they're the only ones that matter. Like they are the platform owner. Like whatever they choose for their platforms is the answer, right? And like, I just don't think you need like a great coming together of a bunch of peers on this, right? You just need Apple to do the right thing.
Apple and Google.
I think Apple and Google are starting to feel a little more pressure on this. And one of the things I asked the team to look into, or that they were already looking into actually, was whether some of these new legislation moving through the states names Google and Apple. And I don't know the answer to that. But it reminded me of that TikTok app banning discussion where the attention did turn to that. I mean, the mechanism by which you would actually enact a TikTok ban, which, by the way, there was a hearing we should probably talk about, would be through the app stores. But yeah, I don't see them facing the pressure. Dave, I was also, to your point, I was a little surprised that in the announcements, Instagram wasn't more making the explicit comparison of how it's gone farther than the others, because usually, I mean, there's two ways to do that, right? Like you have an announcement like this, your CEO does an interview in the New York Times that like the New York Times agrees to embargo. You have a small press event, and then your comms teams are just working every phone and trying to help and shape every story on background, right? Yep. And usually the competitive intelligence happens in bucket 3. And so then you start to see all these throwaway lines, meanwhile, Snap does this and YouTube does this. And I didn't see much of that, which was interesting to me, because
it's a good call out of the media industry, right? Like, why aren't they holding this accountability as well? Like, we need everybody to do this.
That's true. And also like to do the homework of where people stack up in the industry. It's totally notable. I think it puts a spotlight on as well on a lot of this legislation that is coming down. The New York bill that actually passed mandated a lot of this.
I would love to see a chart to this point, Jess, that maybe the information should do this.
We are in the
simple
chart business.
Table of all of the players that need or should have parental controls, and when was the last time they updated those controls? Like, are they iterating on it at all? Are they doing any work to improve it? Because that's the thing that I think about a lot, is that the Apple ones haven't been updated in years. And so it's just like, are they working on this? Like, do they care?
Here's the question though. I'm with you, but just to push a little bit, like there are a lot of apps that like have parental controls. I can't use any of them. They're all like so impossible to use. And like, totally. So this goes back to the whole thing. It's like, I'm not looking for more, like I'm pretty sophisticated with how I use technology. And like, if I have trouble managing the average parent, there's just no chance, right?
No
Which is why I
question.
go back to like, this is an OS thing. This is not like a thing you can possibly manage app
Or
by
just
app.
don't
Like,
buy your kids phones. And I know our oldest is 7, and I'm going to sound so naive and eat those words in however many years.
well, we're not going to buy them a pager. Those things are
But
dangerous.
we're not talking about, we're talking about, I mean,
Those things
that's
blow
the
up.
thing.
Oh,
It's
God.
it's an interesting question, Jess, because we're talking about 13 to 16-year-olds here are who Instagram is purportedly helping.
I know that I know that I'm not qualified to comment on that, but I am compelled by these phones that literally just call.
We have
or
one.
text.
I'm so proud of it. Have you seen my huge brick phone? It's great. I have a phone that's like huge and heavy and has a massive keypad for very old people. And I'm going to give that to the Lion eventually. It's huge.
No, but there are Bray, you're more on this market. There are like the kid phones.
There are kid phones. There are dumb
don't work.
phones. At least they do. Barbie just partnered with someone to launch a phone. It's like a pink, just little flip phone. So they're trying to appeal to younger kids by putting brands and colors and things that they would like as their first phone to get them at least connected with, actual communication, but not apps. And I think that's a good strategy. I feel like you want your kid to have the ability to text you if they're in an emergency, right?
Yeah, I find texting quite useful. Well, it's definitely a new era and interesting. Any other thoughts on the Instagram?
It does just feel like a sea change. And I think we talked about this 6 months ago, that whenever there's a problem out there that a lot of people are looking for a solution for, things can go very quickly. And it does feel like that's happening here. Like, we're hearing something almost every week where there's a big change happening. And so it does actually give me some optimism that society does have a good immune system to protect itself when things go too far. And it feels like parents worldwide are really feeling this right now. And so it's good to see people like Meta taking this seriously and helping to move the movement forward, because I think the future generations are going to be better off.
Guys, can I add one more bullet point on the YouTube hype thing? Because I actually have the real information about it now, and it's a little bit more OnlyFans than I expected.
What?
Maybe Sam can weigh in on this.
I
Okay,
love
ready?
OnlyFans.
I know you do. If a video has been out less than 7 days from a creator with under 500,000 subscribers, then you can hype it. And
So that means
the same
us.
thing about Hype Supply. It
Yeah.
climbs a leaderboard. But also,
We need hypes, you guys.
you can hype up to 3 times a week. And in the future, we plan to allow fans to purchase additional hypes, unlocking
Oh,
another revenue stream
This
for
is
creators.
micropayments. This is tips. This is OnlyFans.
This is OnlyFans.
This seems
Right, Sam?
confusing to me.
I haven't used OnlyFans, but I assume that's how it works.
Is that how it works?
Sam.
It sounds like we just need to create a bunch of YouTube bot accounts in like Lithuania so we can hype our own videos. That seems like the future.
Yeah.
All the growth marketers around the world right now are psyched for this feature. I love it.
YouTube is going to see this massive uptick. The real point here is not actually the hypes. They just need more users. And so there's going to be a massive uptick in users from strange countries.
And new revenue streams. Well, this is digital goods.
That can't possibly matter. So that's the thing about a company like YouTube. There's absolutely no way. There's some junior product manager who's trying to get promoted, who's like, this will be revenue. He's like, that will be $5 of revenue against your like $100 billion.
OnlyFans has a ton of revenue. Why can't this take market share from
Tips are
OnlyFans?
huge. Someone once told me, and I wish I remembered the number, like the percentage of App Store process transactions that are in the like tips arena, or
That's just
Yeah.
called porn. That's called porn. It's just,
Yeah.
that is what it is.
but the same. I mean, fine. It still follows that people use the mechanism.
I don't know. It's also, these aren't tips. These are just YouTube taking the money, right?
Yeah.
There's a very big difference between I'm going to give a
It's
creator.
very confusing.
No, it's another revenue stream for creators. I bet that's a rev share. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like tips, but I'm sure there's a rev share for YouTube as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Fine. That actually makes more sense because the
This
$12.
is big. This is the whole China video sharing market right here. So
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to come back to it. I think this
Well,
is
that's
a
why
bigger
I'm-
deal than we
The
thought.
joke of, 2024 innovation, it just seems like this has been going on in China and all over the place forever.
So, guys, when we get all these tips, how are we going to split them? Is it like 25% a piece? Is it like.
I think we got to go in equal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, who's talking?
If Sam takes his shirt off, he gets more tips.
Fine.
We're going to have no tips. He's just not going to wear clothing. It's going to be horrible.
I'm going to be all about the tips.
That's not very OnlyFans. Yeah.
I'm going to make a t-shirt that says, I do it for the tips.
For the hypes. No, I do it for the hypes.
That's how you monetize this. The real way to monetize this innovation is swag about hypes. In it for the hype. In it for the hype.
How many hypes can we get on this video of this episode? I think we should start there.
None so far.
So it turns out, I was talking to some creators, and it turns out, you probably know this, but like YouTube subscribers is like a completely meaningless number, right? Like it totally doesn't matter, right? Even likes don't really matter. But if hypes matter, they might have a new currency that we're going to have to optimize for.
Exactly.
I mean, theoretically, that's what they're doing here, right? Like they're changing the game, the underlying game.
And just to riff on this for one more second, that actually is, I think, one theory of generally product, like social products in general, is that all social features effectively, like there's an inflation rate that exists in social currencies. And so what happens is when you've been around for a while as a social platform, you actually have to invent new features and new mechanics for the pure reason of directing distribution to new users, because otherwise the game becomes rigged and whoever was around first just wins the game. And therefore it's not interesting to anyone else. So there's an argument that you basically have to be constantly launching and deprecating social features over time to keep people engaged and to create opportunities where new people actually want to try, right, the game. And so if you look at like a Twitter got super stale because like there was no social inflation rate to the products. Like Dave, you got, 100,000 followers or whatever from being in the Nux flow when it launched. And like for time, like the value of those subscribers goes to zero, but there's no new mechanic and you're still the king of Twitter, right? Whereas Facebook went through friends and then stories and like all these different interaction types, right? And intentional or not, it created a dynamic that kept it going. Instagram's done a better job of this with new features constantly.
Yeah. What people don't realize is that Meta is the social Federal Reserve.
Because they can just mint new social interactions.
Well, YouTube too.
Yeah.
Hypes.
Yeah.
Super. Oh my God. What? It's like the poke, but the pumped.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, the poke.
So I think
but
actually maybe
that
if we want to be not cynical about hypes, the stupid take is, oh my God, it's tipping again, boring, copying China. The smart version is YouTube's social interactions and like the willingness of new people to try YouTube as a platform has gotten super stale because it's just too big and the winners have been anointed. And so this is just a minted new social activity, right? Which can refresh their community and graph.
I think that's absolutely right. Like it's become a mimetic joke, smash the like button, right? Like everybody's been doing the same thing on YouTube forever. So that's just exactly right, Sam.
Yeah. So maybe we'll see. Maybe it actually is smarter than we give them credit for.
Good call to bring this up. I think it's interesting. And I just think YouTube is really interesting. So
same.
I'm watching YouTube right now.
Oh, goodness.
On 1X or 2X?
Good question.
Oh, goodness.
All right. So in other news, I also read that Amazon is now requiring its employees to be in office 5 days a week.
Oh my God, 5 days a week?
This has been an ongoing thread that we've had about what's going to happen with the future of work and remote and hybrid and in person. And I don't know, do you think the tide's turning a little bit?
I think the tide has turned.
To be in person 5 days a week?
What tide are we talking about?
That people are finding more productivity when their employees are in the office 5 days a week.
Is
Yes
it
or
about
no?
productivity or just about social connectivity? Like, it just seems like everybody's going crazy being stuck on screens and that, it's like a combination of productivity and just like social health.
I think we saw the era of companies just slash and burning their teams because they realized they didn't need so many people. And then we went into the selective cuts. And now we're in the era of let's just raise the bar or the barrier. And if we lose some people over
cynical.
it, then that's okay. But we can be smaller. And this is a good way to filter out pretty hardcore people. Now, unfortunately, hardcore people and maybe also people who don't have as much flexibility and could be very bad for women. And there are a lot of things we have to talk about, or parents. But I think that is the sort of attitude of these companies.
Let's make it 6 days a week. I mean, I'm a huge believer in policies as screens, right? And like using policies as screens to get to who you want. So for instance, I've been messing around. I built this platform, Standard Aptitude, which is basically just for who we're going to hire as associates at Slow. And like, what does it make you do? It's like, well, I don't want to see your resume anymore. If you want a job, there's like an hour digital interview with videos and responses, all of which we can then review in like a tenth of the time, right? And like part of the point is I actually want the answers. I want to be able to source candidates more broadly, whatever. Part of it is whoever decides that they're not just like interested enough to send me an AI generated cover letter and an AI generated thing, but are actually willing to put the time in to like craft a like actual application, I'm willing to spend time with them. So like the product and your process becomes the screen for who's worth your time. My view on the Amazon thing is, as Jess said, is exactly the same thing. It's like, I just don't want employees who aren't capable of giving me their full time and attention or interested in it. So sure, make them demonstrate that by showing up in the office.
It just has to be, it's like zero sum. I think you have to go all in, or you have to be more chill and flexible in the hybrid situation. The other thing they said is we're not just going to have desks that anyone can sit at. You're going to have a specific desk again. Like this is your seat. I think some companies that are like 2 or 3 days a week don't have assigned seating because people come in random days of the week. But this is another layer of sort of forcefulness to get their teams back in office. And then the other change they're making is they're actually trying to increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers by 15% by the end of Q1 because they've gotten manager heavy.
I love that.
Which I think is a good mood. Yeah.
I mean, that's good.
Who needs managers?
This is the real story of AI, right? Which is middle managers are screwed, right? That's not a job anymore, right? In technology, right? Everyone's recognizing that. It was kind of funny land when everyone's profitability was infinite and growing. And like now we're doing business. And when you like do business, like you see the implications of technology. And yeah, it's like you need fewer people that can be more productive. You don't want middle managers getting in the way. You're going to run lean and you're going to run hard.
Yeah,
for sure.
Are other companies doing this, or like what phase are we in? I mean, this is certainly an aggressive stance from Amazon, but I feel like there's a pack mentality to all of this. Do you think more will be coming?
I think so. Didn't Sundar was the latest to get really upset about it, right?
And like, doesn't Meta, they just don't even go to the office anymore? Like,
no, I think they're back in the office.
No, I think they're there 3 days a week, or a lot of people are.
I think the question is, there's two things. One is like rationalizing for serious business. Like one of the nice things about Amazon is not a super high margin business, right? Like they have to like do capitalism, right? They're not infinite margin, silly la. And so like they get to lead on this and be like, yeah, we're, you only get one banana today, right? And then I think there's a question of like, does that create permission for other companies to do what they're doing? Like, well, Amazon did it, so we did. We saw that with the Elon stuff, right? Like, all credit to Elon. Elon did some crazy cuts, which then like shifted the Overton window. So all the other companies go say, well, Elon did it, so now we can, even if we wanted to before, we didn't want to get roasted for it. So I think it like creates space for them to do it. But I also do think that like Amazon is in a particularly aggressive, brutal business, right? Which means that it may be like that they are more exceptional in their ability and care to do it.
Yeah, and their business is also being flooded with low quality Chinese products that are just like, in my view, completely changing their brand.
Well, and they're under Temu assault.
That's what I mean.
They are, although there was big news on that too, which is that the de minimis loophole that allowed Temu to ship such small orders to the US quite inexpensively without these extra tariffs or taxes or whatever they are is going away.
I can't even believe that this loophole existed in the first place. It's like unbelievable that we like let this happen.
I also just think it's like, it's a great story of how regulation actually does drive all this stuff, right?
We're so incompetent.
It's just wild. But Temu, at this point, my only neg on Temu is, my business partner and Dave, your former business partner, Karen Collar, and he's like all about Temu now. Like he just buys things on Temu all day long.
Not surprised.
Why? Because it's cheaper?
He's a Costco person. This is a type of person.
We forgot from the Super Bowl, guys, it's Temu. Remember the ad?
Temu.
I don't care. Get out of our market. Pay fair tariffs,
Oh, Dave's a Republican.
But it's like, I do feel like Kevin was like their peak customer. Like he is their ideal customer. So like now they've chewed through Kevin. Like there's no more Kevins to find, right? Like he's the peak customer of Temu.
Kevin,
Temu.
An early employee at Facebook, is not their key customer.
Oh, yes, he is. You know what? That guy will buy anything if it's cheap.
You are reminding me, it's like kid Halloween costume time. I think Temu is like, they should have a kid Halloween costume campaign.
Oh God.
They don't.
Get rid of the loophole. Play on fairgrounds. Come on.
Look, after the pager situation, I don't think we're buying anything from Temu. We have no idea what's
So
in that
Sam,
shit.
you brought up the pager situation. Obviously,
I was gonna say, are we gonna talk about this? This is like a movie. This is like out of a movie.
It's definitely out of a movie.
What are you convinced is the situation here?
The Israelis got into the supply chain for these pagers. They figured out a very smart way to effectively make them into mini explosives. They were all on their way to Hezbollah, and then Israel let them get to Hezbollah and then hit a button and set them all off as bombs in everyone's pockets. It's unbelievable.
But how do you think, so you think there's like no traditional explosives in these? Like I think
they figured it out. There's like they figured out something. I'm not going to get it right. It's like they put 2 ounces of some chemical into it, and then when it heated up enough, it like turned it into a bomb. It's brilliant. And like, but it is wild. You talk about supply chain security. It's like, the good news is that's very smart and worked really well because they're distributing these cheap pagers, right? And they got in the supply chain. But that is also completely terrifying if you're an American when you think about the supply chain and our supply chain vulnerabilities, right? Because if our enemies didn't have good ideas before, now they have some good ideas, right? In terms of what they can do. So I'm not buying cheap phones or things from Temu anytime soon. I don't know what's in that shit.
Basically, nothing on Amazon is safe.
Well, yeah. I do think, so here's the interesting question. Again, play this out in the science fiction narrative. Supply chain risk is very real around like injury. It could be short term, could be long term. It could be stuff that causes cancer over the long term, could be, bombs in your pocket. I do wonder if like you end up with like higher end marketplaces that you pay more for supply chain security, right? Like, is the future of Apple products, for instance, and the reason you buy an Apple product and not some random Android thing, actually more about the fact that like you're more confident it's not a bomb, right, than anything else, right? And so I do wonder.
Such a sad state of the world when we have to do that. I can't believe that.
I think this is playing out across the board, though. You don't have to think about it in terms of bombs to have this be the kind of one of the core narratives of brand right now, right? Like, I find it so fascinating that you open up Amazon today, and it's like this infinite sea of Chinese brands that have no name. And you literally don't know what's in there anymore. You can't even find brands that you know of inside of the marketplace anymore. And so what you're saying, Sam, appears to be true. Like, I find myself going on the Shop app, right? Shopify's app has a shopping framework that you can go inside of and browse around and find goods that are from, companies you've already bought from before or higher quality brands. Like, it does seem like this is a tale of two cities in the future, like without question.
And it's just interesting because I think like we've all gone through the whole, do we buy the knockoff brand that's super cheap? And we're like worried the hammer won't work, it'll break or something. Like the product isn't good. And like, I think that's always been a consideration. And the reason a lot of these cheap goods things, because it doesn't really matter. You're just like, well, I was only going to use that once anyway, or it's such a basic product, it's hard to screw up. But it is interesting when you say it's not just about the product quality, but like literally the security of the thing, right? Does it have, you can think about that with supplements, right? Like, people sell supplements and they say these are the supplements that are safe versus not safe and how they're processed. Like, it's the same story. But I wonder how much supply chain security becomes a thing, and the thing people are willing to pay for, right, is the real question.
We should get Ryan Peterson on the pod.
Yeah, that's a
Are you willing to pay twice as much? I mean, you are willing to pay twice as much for a supplement.
Have like ports that can scan these things better instead of where because so much global shipment. People aren't going to just change where they buy from. Like, people in America want a deal.
The fentanyl problem would not be what it is if that were a secure part of the supply chain.
I'm not saying it's secure right now. I'm suggesting it's a better solution than just telling people not to buy things.
I don't think
China
you understand how many things go through American ports every day.
I just think, like, could you imagine a business? Here's an idea. Like, could you imagine a business where, like, basically, if supply chains become less secure, there's more risk around it, like, all your shit goes to some local people, like a team that rips it all apart, makes sure it's safe before it gets delivered to your house, right? Would you pay?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's a lot of people that already do this.
I know, but I'm saying it like as a more there are people that already do this. I'm saying at a more mass scale. Like, does this become a thing that we all pay for because like we just don't trust the inputs? Like, do you have all your food analyzed? Like, what? Like, how do you think about this playing out? Right?
It's a really interesting question. I think it's so fascinating that I didn't even realize that this Temu loophole was there. This is just an economic loophole that caused an enormous amount of goods to flow through our borders that we didn't realize was happening. Like, I didn't realize that that was one of the underlying driving dynamics of the Temu thing. As soon as I saw it, it was like, oh, of course, that's what's going on. But the fact that something as simple as a $1,000 limit, created this massive flood of sub 1,000 low quality products. I doubt most of those products coming through the borders are scanned in any way, right? So that's pretty scary.
Yeah. Another thing to be scared about and be vigilant.
Build businesses around.
Well, just don't buy digital things, and don't buy digital things and supplements and food stuffs, things that can kill you.
Okay, so nothing.
Make your own computers. It's the only safe way.
I mean, that could be a fun new future. People get back into hot rodding computers.
Well, it's like I'm going to buy metal and my own fab and build my own computer so it's safe.
Oh my God.
No one has time for this.
Personal fab.
So that actually reminds me of our last topic, which is crypto, because that's what the crypto people are probably the most likely to build their own computers because they don't trust anyone. Sam, you've had an
everyone's favorite casino.
Well, Sam, do you want to talk about your big crypto win of the week?
Oh yeah, this is the part where I lick the cookie. So,
this is the part where we get Sam. This is the part where we get Sam's ego under
where
control.
do these phrases come from?
So, Sam, you should talk about the origin of that phrase.
Lick the cookie?
What is this phrase? This is like as bad as nasty.
No, it's Britt. So here's in a big company.
I don't know this phrase either.
Really? Oh,
no.
I'm glad to teach you something. So it's actually an old Microsoft.
Important.
This is a real thing. It's an old Microsoft saying. And the idea was that if you had your team and a new project came out that was exciting, what you would do is you staff one engineer on it so you can claim you're working on it. And then all the other managers can't work on it because when they're like, oh, who's going to work on this cool project? Like, I'm already working on it. Even though all you did is lick the cookie, you put a single engineer in a corner on it so you could say you were already doing it. So the lick the cookie is you grab you lick all the cookies of the things and no one else wants to eat them.
Okay.
That's where the phrase comes from.
All right.
I see. So I'm just going to start licking all your cookies, Sam, just to fuck with you.
This is going to get weird really fast.
Instead of I drink your milkshake, it's like you don't even have to drink the milkshake. You can just lick the cookie.
I don't even know what the milkshake is in this analogy, but keep going.
Okay, so look, the big news that I will say I'm very excited about is there's a period where I seeded a bunch of the layer 1 protocols that were kind of alts to ETH. Everyone was very excited about ETH. I was like, that's cool. There's a lot of other interesting stuff going on. Most notably, I seeded Solana with a few other folks, which has been a fabulous return, and I think is probably the most important cryptocurrency outside of Bitcoin. I'm a short on ETH, long on Solana. But I will say that in the ZK and the privacy world, at that period, we also seeded a company called Aleo, or a project called Aleo. We were the first investors along with Olaf at Polychain. And we kind of split the seed round. And it kind of became it's one of these things where for the last 5 years, it's been very buzzy with investors and technologists, but it hasn't been real, right? So it's raised a ton of money.
What has been, Sam? Explain to people. I think people probably need a little bit of a ZK primer here.
Too long for a ZK primer, but the basic idea, I'd say, is if Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value, if Solana is differentiation is it's a very, very super fast and efficient way to do crypto transactions at scale, performance is core property. Aleo's core thing is privacy. And what you can do with Aleo, you can't do with almost anything else, really anything else, is build decentralized private apps. So you actually could build a truly decentralized internet through and through and have decentralized apps that aren't controlled or sitting on a single server somewhere, et cetera. So it's a really powerful technology. But it's one of these things where it's incredibly cool tech. It's had a long road, right, from being founded to finally today being fully mainnet launched, past Genesis, trading on Coinbase, fully live with real applications starting to roll on. So it's been a very fun journey, and it's a project I'm super, super excited about. So I'm happy to see it launch.
Cool. Congrats, Sam.
Thank you. And the lick the cookie is lots of other people invested lots of money, but I get to say I was first, which is all I care about.
Oh, God,
Great.
Sam.
First. I don't know where to go from there. In other news, we have a wedding anniversary this weekend.
For you?
Happy 22nd. 22nd.
22nd.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
12.
I was like, when did you guys get married?
12. Well, that would have been 22nd dating, but
Yeah. We're close to that. in
whatever
dating.
you call that. So that's exciting.
What are you guys going to do?
We're going to go to
Sam?
a conference.
We're going to dinner tonight. We have a very fancy dinner. I thought this ahead.
No, I wasn't. But
Sam planned it?
I planned
You
it.
planned
I
it?
planned a thing.
Good job, Sam.
What are you
Good job.
wearing, Sam, so I can calibrate? Are you wearing what you're wearing?
No, I'm going to put like maybe even a collared shirt on.
Oh,
Got it. Checkered color or solid? Because you
I don't know.
Like
What would you prefer?
Cowboy vibe. Well, it's just more like I got a whole spectrum to
Should
calibrate.
I shave?
I don't know.
probably.
You think so?
I don't know
Britt?
what Jess likes. Well, I don't know what Jess's preference is, so I leave it to her. But I think a clean shaven man is nice on an anniversary date.
Okay, I'll defer
Fine.
to Britt.
Fine.
Thanks.
What do you guys have cooking this weekend?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's kids' sports season, which I think that all parents will agree is one of the more chaotic things in life, especially if you have multiple kids that play sports because you don't have a weekend anymore. So we're back and forth with all kinds of games and events and parent parties and play dates. And
Isn't every season kids sports season? What season is not kids sports season?
Summer.
Yeah, it's like the question now is how do you set any boundaries at all from kids sports just taking over your life?
That is a key question.
I somehow ended up in like this part of Instagram where it's parents giving each other like influencer advice as to how to set boundaries with kids sports, which I think is
Ooh.
a very interesting thing that I guess a lot of people are talking
Please
about.
Please send.
Yeah.
Have I gone on my rant about shoes yet?
Rant.
Okay. So I was prepared for many things, having 3 boys, and many people gave you a lot of advice. They did not warn you about the shoes. Because if you have athletic boys who then, you have significant shoe needs, and then you have 3 of them, and their feet are constantly growing, and all I'm doing is ordering the cheapest shoes I can find that fit the particular need.
Does Temu do shoes?
yeah,
I don't know.
Temu
Temu shoes. Lion really wanted basketball shoes. And we held off for 7 days. 7 days. We're like, you're using your running shoes. And then Sports Basement hit.
And on the 8th day, we caved.
Someone should invent an expandable shoe. Sarah Blakely just invented sneaks, which are like comfortable high heels. What if there's a shoe that can just stretch?
Well, but it's not that. You need the sole. I mean, again, I think the kids will be fine.
No,
but
let's be clear. These kids need none of these shoes. We buy them for them because we want to invest because they're excited about them and we don't set boundaries. They need tennis shoes and they need running shoes.
Well, I was going to say I do need tennis shoes because you're not going to mark up a tennis court.
Oh, no way.
But it's like a thing. Like, I know when people talk about boy sneaker culture, they're talking about something else, not this. But this is.
I agree with you, Jess. I see where you're at.
And their feet, they grow fast. And you're not going to, if you're lucky enough to buy your kid more shoes, you're not going to, their feet grow.
It's true.
I think the question, so Britt, the question I have for you in parting would be, what is the crafty thing you do with all the shoes as they go out? Like you create like a quilt of
a
shoes.
little DIY project. Well, I did see this really cool thing. What's it called?
Is there a mill of shoes?
Well, separately, but for stuffed animals, because our kids amass a lot of those. This is an interesting, I'm pivoting from your question. What's it called, Dave, in Montana, where you cut off the heads of an animal and put it on the wall?
Oh,
you mount them? That's really fucked up.
You mount them like a trophy mount. Yeah.
So a lot of people are starting to mount the stuffed animal heads that their kids
It's
love.
genius. I love this idea.
That sounds
And they look
awful.
really cool, actually.
I just love the idea of a mill for stuffies where you open it and you throw the stuffies in it, chops them up into little bits and makes our kids would lose their
Makes new
minds.
stuffies. Yeah.
It's going in the stuffy mill.
No, don't you dare. They're going to have so many nightmares if you do that. I don't want to deal with that.
Oh, taxidermy, stuffy taxidermy.
Taxidermy. That's
I mean, that is pretty funny.
It's good.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah. Okay, friends. Well, it's been another week, another episode, lots of ground covered. A big thanks, as always, to our listeners, viewers, back channel, friends. Hopefully, those we haven't pissed off too much.
Do we still have any of those?
And our new YouTube hypers.
Yeah, hype us on YouTube.
You hype us, you're going to get a shout out per hype.
We'll give you a stuffy.
Merch.
Every hype we get, we will deliver you a stuffy from one of our
We'll give you
children.
a headless stuffy after we've taxidermied all our kids' favorite stuffies. So,
or kids' shoes, if you want kids' shoes. That's our giveaway.
Totally.
Our giveaway is instead of like a pair of Air Jordans, is like we'll give you a size 1.
I'll give you a K-12, kids 12. I don't have anyone in that size range currently. Okay, friends. Until again, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.